And I realize this story I'm sharing is messy. Like I said, this is a raw version. I need to get this out. And I just want to say, for you're listening to this, is during this whole time I'm going through this. It's like right and when my grandmother and Sarah died on May 28th, the harassment still continued. Like it even got worse with what was happening. And it's like I didn't even have a moment or a chance to grieve, to really process everything. Yes, I had these human connections which were amazing, getting me out of my head for sure. But I didn't have that time to really grieve these two losses. It was like the whole time, it's like my mind was numb. I was in shock. I was on the verge of losing everything. Like the space I am at right now, yes, you could call it, it's like a second home to me, but it's an office space where I work from this place. I've had it for like, over 4 years, 5, 6 years. Yes, during 11/11, all the streaming live shows were done from this space. And it meant everything to me that if I lost it, which was what my landlord was trying to do, they're trying to do everything they could to make it look like I was on my own accord late for the rent, so they would have grounds to evict me and get me out. And they've been trying to do that for a year. Even though I've been in communication with them since day one, I wasn't one of those people who was trying to just scam the system and not pay my rent because I could, because of COVID. I paid my rent, they refused the check, and that's where it all started. And they wouldn't return my check, got a polygraph test, proved that they were lying. And that's not it. Oh, if I'm like having tears in my eyes, it's not because I'm still in that like I so don't be look like poor me, what happened to you. No, it was like a miracle that I won against these people who were like, they're a $1 billion company. They could afford their lawyers, high corporation, won't even mention their name because I don't want to call anyone out responsibly. I mean, Scott had to literally take me to the doctor, get him to sign an anxiety note, as you see here, confirming that I've got anxiety. I've been suffering from panic attacks, and it's the cause of this harassment from my landlord that's been getting worse, escalating. Like I was in anxiety and having panic attacks. And I didn't win, really. Just like I didn't win, against my employer in 2017. Yes, I won the, 30 grand or so, but because Scott won it for me, Scott won it for me. And same thing here, I didn't win. I was having anxiety that was going off the roof and panic attacks where Scott had to go take me to the doctor, get him to write an anxiety letter, sign off on it so Scott can be allowed to represent me at the hearing on August 12th, last Thursday. So really Scott won again for me. I didn't win on my own. Scott won. He had to represent me. See, with how the court system works with the LTB, I wasn't even allowed, Scott wasn't even allowed to bring up the whole harassment thing. The truth is, I was 12 months late with the rent. In retrospect, I shouldn't have even won. It's a miracle that I even won, that Scott won for me. Like just how he did things and, represented me. And the truth is, I was persistently late with the rent. Not only was I persistently late with the rent for 12 months in a row, but I still, to this date, have never paid it. And Scott still won. That's why I say it's a miracle that I'm not evicted right now. It's a miracle I still have this space. And that's because Scott won this case for me, given that it's true, I was persistently late with the rent for 12 months in a row. And then I had to do, I won the first hearing because there was a stay of proceedings, and the harassment with my employer for, I mean, sorry, with, see, it's so identical with my landlord. They drove me where I had to, on April 4th, claim bankruptcy just to save my place, my space. And so the bankruptcy covered the 12 months of rent that I didn't pay, but I was still persistently late. And so I got a stay of proceedings after bankruptcy. And then after bankruptcy, like, even the adjudicator at the hearing told Scott that this case is so complicated, not even, it's beyond what a lawyer even knows what to do. And so she insisted that we go and talk to what they call Judy counsel. And Scott didn't want to because he was so certain that he was going to win this for me. He was that certain. But she insisted that we speak to Judy counsel first because she didn't know what to do and, get some advice or whatever. So out of respect for her authority, he said, yes, okay, we'll do so, but we'll only do so on one account. Like, he even really pleaded on my case. He said that Sameena right now, look at her, she's in anxiety, she's having panic attacks. She can't even move right now. She's stuck and she cannot do this anymore. She needs a decision today, whether she wins or loses. She just needs this to be over today. She cannot go on like this anymore. So if we go out of here and get Judy counsel, can you assure me, adjudicator, that we're going to still be able to come back today, that the hearing is not going to be rescheduled for another day, because I can assure you she cannot take any more of this. And the adjudicator said, yes, I promise. You go see Judy counsel and you can come back and you will get a hearing today for sure. This will be over today. And so with that being said, we went, we waited, we went out of the hearing, we waited a bit for the Judy counsel. Here I am, still frozen in my seat. I was like, I'm laughing now, but it was so not funny at the time. I was just sitting there and I was like in shock in my seat for like 5 hours. I couldn't even move to go and get a paper. And Scott was, and I didn't even know what was happening. And like everything he was doing, it was genius. What he was saying, his strategy and agreeing to Judy, like it was just genius. And I didn't even know what was happening. So, anyways, we go and speak to Judy counsel. Judy counsel was not very helpful. Like everything she said, Scott already knew. She was not helpful at all. So, anyways, but we did speak to her. Then we went back to the hearing. We got back in. The adjudicator asked, okay, so did you have a chance to speak to Judy counsel? Scott said, yes, we spoke to her, and I asked her exactly what you asked, what you told me, the question to ask her. And she couldn't even answer that. She was not helpful. So yeah, what the adjudicator said, Scott asked her before we went in to see the Judy counsel is, can you please tell me what question I should ask her? He wrote it down. He asked her the exact same question the adjudicator told him to ask her. She couldn't even answer, like she didn't even answer it. And so anyways, with that being said, we went back into the hearing. And for a moment there, I was so afraid because when I was listening to I thought, wow, like there was a chance. Yes, I won the stay, like there was a stay of proceedings. I won the first hearing because I had a stay of proceedings. But then right after bankruptcy, like my landlord, that my trustee didn't tell me, legal aid didn't tell me this. They all told me, as long as you pay your rent, Sameena, right after bankruptcy, we promise you will not be evicted. Like the stay of proceedings will protect you as long as you pay your rent right after you file for bankruptcy, which is what I did. And they all assured me, even the lawyers that I spoke to, legal aid, that I will not be evicted, but I have to pay my rent right after I filed for bankruptcy. So that day of filing, I've got to pay my rent for that for the month, which was May, because I went bankrupt April 4th. I was put in the bankruptcy, And then my next month I have to pay right away, which is what I did. It was like Scott and I were like scrambling to the bank, getting a money order. And it was just so hectic to make sure they get that rent on time based on what my trustee told me, that the only grounds of eviction would be if I don't pay my rent right away after bankruptcy. Then they'll have the grounds to evict me. But if I do that, I am safe and I will not be evicted. The stay of proceedings protects me for sure. And on that note, of course, I didn't know any better, right? I've never been through this ever in my life. And it was a really scary time for me, very young. So I just had to just take my chances. Okay, I'm going to trust what the experts say. And even Scott told me to talk to the trustee because he's not going to put my life in hands where he's not sure about how the system works, even though everything he told me to do and directed me like worked. It's because of everything he told me to do. And I did exactly what he told me to do. Call the legal aid now, get an appointment, talk to them, get this advice, talk to your trustee. All these pieces is what had me actually win my case. But it wasn't what the trustee told me to do that had me win. Like, it was like no one advised me that there was this other piece of law that could still have me evicted even after bankruptcy, which was really shocking that no one told me that, not even the professionals, the experts. And so after bankruptcy, to my surprise, I get this other notice called an N8, persistently late with the rent. And so I thought finally after bankruptcy, and this was just before my grandmother and Sarah died. Like, this was just over a month before. I went bankrupt on April 4th, and my grandmother and Sarah died on May the 28th. So I thought, okay, finally bankruptcy, I'm going to start a clean slate, start to pay my rent again. Landlord will finally leave me alone because of bankruptcy. They cannot harass me any longer. Because of bankruptcy will protect me from that. That's why I ultimately went bankrupt, because I couldn't take the harassment anymore. It was just too much. And with my anxiety disorder, and it was just like panic attacks, they drove me into bankruptcy at that time. And so I went bankrupt April 4th, spiritual day, Easter Sunday. Didn't know it was Easter till after. And by the way, April 4th was the day I told Scott I didn't want to live anymore 3 years ago on April 4th, or so was it 2017, 4 years ago, whatever. So it was a very spiritual day for me. April 4th, I signed the papers.
Pause. So thinking I'm going to be free. Fast forward to May 28th, that day, the snowstorm in Toronto. Right. That was the day my landlord filed something else against me. It was, on that day, snowstorm. Also on that day, Granny dies. Also on that day, my best girlfriend dies. Pause. 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3. So fast forward, thinking I'm going to be free after April 4th because bankruptcy is going to finally protect me from my landlord, and I can finally focus and get my business back on track without any interruptions or harassment from them, and pay my rent monthly again. Finally, I thought I was free. Fast forward, May 28th. My grandmother dies, my best girlfriend Sarah dies, and not only that, what you guys don't know is on that very same day, May 28th, which I didn't share with you, I just shared my grandmother part and my best girlfriend part. They both died that same day, which was tragic enough for me. My landlord files another application on me, against me, to evict me, to my surprise. And it's like the thing hit the storm. You know what I mean? The thing hit the storm. After that, it was just complete panic, anxiety, trauma. And what I thought I was finally free and at peace, the opposite happened. It was a battle now. Even more so, even before bankruptcy. I was still being harassed by my landlord. They filed another application against me that I didn't know that they could. And that this was that, like, I thought I was finally free. I was protected. That's what I was told. But I didn't know that this is what they can do next. And they got the harassment, the intimidation, even after bankruptcy continued. All right, so recap, just get this, guys. Wasn't just late with the rent. I was 12 months late in a row and I still have not paid it. And yet I won. Well, Scott won this case for me. Yes, day of proceedings covered it, but I was still persistently late with the rent. And that's the application they filed against me, for persistently late with the rent. And it was grounds for eviction for me. I could have lost, even though after I went bankrupt. There was this little piece in the law, this little loophole where they could have, they knew they still had grounds to evict me, because it's true. I was persistently late with the rent, not for 3 months, not for 6 months, but for 12 months in a row. That's why I say it's a miracle. I shouldn't have won, really, but it's a miracle what happened on August 12th. With that being said, when I say miracle, right after on April 4th, as soon as I signed those papers, Scott informed me just to support me and help me, because he knew how much was at stake here and how much this space meant to me. If I lost it, I'd lose everything, my whole business. I work out of here, and long story there. This is the only, it's the only place I have as an office space. And to uproot and loot, like, my whole business again would be decimated. There's no way I can work from my home. It's a little box. I'm not allowed to have an office in there. And I just, this was everything to me. It represented my life, my business. And so that was really scary, traumatizing, because they did have grounds to evict me. Like, I could still lose. I went bankrupt just to save my place. But even knowing that, them filing that other application on me could have still had me lose this place after bankruptcy, put everything on the line. So right after I signed April 4th, and thank God Scott did that with me, guided me to do that, because that's what ultimately was one of the factors, a key factor that had me win, for being persistently late with the rent for 12 months until today, not having paid it. So right after I signed the papers, he says, okay, now Sameena, you got to show you're now going to be persistently early with your rent. So what he said he's going to do, he hired me for $1,000 a month. It was an 18K contract for at least 1 year, for hired me for services I can do from admin, whatever that he needed to be done in his business. He hired me and he said, I'm going to pay you early. I'm going to pay you 3 months early, so you can be persistently early with the rent, and you can actually pay your rent, not just a month, like for that month that you got to pay for, but for 2 months in advance. And so he told me to invoice him, and he paid me a retainer for 3 months, just so I can pay my rent a bit in advance, to show them persistently early with my rent after bankruptcy. And that's exactly what happened. Thanks to Scott hiring me for $1,000 a month, had me get back on track, and to show that my circumstances has changed post bankruptcy, where I could pay my rent again. Now, that's not the end of the story. I think you guys are going to be pretty blown away with this next part if you're not yet. After I sign my bankruptcy papers, Scott rushes to the bank with me to get 2 money orders so I could pay not just 1 month's rent, but 2 months rent to show them persistently early for May and June. So we get 2 money orders. And meanwhile, through all that time, because again, the landlord also ordered me that they're not going to accept any checks from me. And this is, and get this, guys, which I learned later is they cannot legally do that, but they have it in writing that they'll only accept either a certified check from me or a money order. That's it. They won't even take automated payments from me. And so I'm rushing because, again, my trustee said is if I'm even one day late with the rent after bankruptcy, I can be, they will evict, I can be, they will have grounds to evict me. As soon as I get the 2 money orders, right after I sign the papers for May and June to give to my landlord, Scott says, get track, make sure I go to Canada Post, get tracking numbers because these people are trying to do anything they can. So it appears you're late with the rent. So get this, even after bankruptcy, I am paying my rent again and saying I even tell them I have a money order for them. And they ignore me and they make it like they don't, it's like they don't even want the rent checks from me. It's like they want me out so bad that they will do anything to make it look like I've been late with the rent. And even to sabotage, first of all during COVID, they've been sabotaging my ability to make an income after me telling them I have an anxiety order, interrupting me, harassing me, knocking on my door loud 3 times a day. Like all this is going on. So they're sabotaging my ability to make an income as a self-employed person. And not only that, I've gone bankrupt. I'm after bankruptcy, they're still doing the same thing, but they're making it appear that I've been late with the rent, sabotaging my rent checks, even getting to them on time. First of all, I right after bankruptcy, I send them an email. Okay, I have a money order for you. Please tell me the right address I can send this to you because I don't want it to get lost again, as you have a history of losing my checks. I asked them how many times, maybe 5, 6 times, no response, no response, no response. They ignore my emails, even with me saying I'm ready to pay my rent again. Please send me your correct address. And so we go to Canada Post, send it out to them, 2 money orders, so they cannot say I'm late with the rent. I'm like persistently early with the rent, paid 2 months in advance, thanks to Scott hiring me right after bankruptcy so I can get help to help support me in this process. And so Canada Post proves that the checks, 2 money orders, were delivered to their mailbox same day, same time. And after me asking them, I know 5, 6, 7 times, please send me the correct address and blah, blah, blah. And finally, after I get the correct address to them, like this is April 20th, after me asking them constantly to send me the right address, they claim that they've only received one money order, not the other. And I know that's not true. Why? Because the tracking number with Canada Post proves that 2 money orders were delivered to my landlord in their mailbox, not only the same day, but the same time. And then we went back to Canada Post, and even Scott was with me and asked the agent, is it possible that they couldn't have received it? This says that they received, and the agent was even surprised and said, it's impossible that they did not get this. It says 2 money orders were delivered in their mailbox. And they say they didn't receive, they only received one money order. And so I go back to CIBC again. They will not, CIBC said I have to get an affidavit signed by my landlord saying that they lost the other money order, or they didn't receive it. So it's otherwise I will lose, the rent is $1,815.06. I'll lose over $1,800 because then it's going to be as a lost money order, and there's no way for me to get my money back if they don't sign the affidavit. So we get the affidavit. I actually send them the affidavit, like put it downstairs in the mail box, like by the door, give them the affidavit and let them know, email the landlord after and say, I sent you an affidavit. Long story short, blah, blah, blah. Please sign that you did not receive the other money order so the money can be refunded back into my account. That's what CIBC said. Otherwise, I would have lost that money. No response with the affidavit. And get this, 2 days later, after I send them the affidavit, right after I go into my mailbox to check the mail, and I see that money order stuffed in my mailbox. Now it's impossible. Like I even asked, is it possible that this could have been, my sent back to me? And like Canada Post confirms that it was delivered in their mailbox. And like a week, 2 weeks later, it's in my mailbox. Like that just proves they've been trying to sabotage my ability to get my rent to them on time and being early because they wanted me out so bad. They knew there was a hearing coming up. They had a case for me being persistently late with the rent, which was true before bankruptcy. But as they know the system, of course, better than I do, better than the Scott does, now, after being in this court with persistently late with the rent, I know why they were trying to sabotage my to make it look like I was again persistently late with the rent instead of persistently early with the rent after bankruptcy. But at the time of the hearing, I was about 5 months persistently early with the rent, paid up until October 1st. And Scott said to do that. And right after I won, or Scott won this for me, Scott said, let's go to the bank right away, get another money order because now there's a filing fee I had to pay, blah, blah, and pay it right away before even it's due. So now I'm paid my rent till up to November 1st. And ultimately, by being persistently early, not just paying my rent on time after bankruptcy for a month, but being persistently early with the rent, including all these other factors, the anxiety disorder note that Scott had the doctor sign for me so he can represent me. And now it's official. There's like it authenticates my story of what I've been telling them. I have an anxiety disorder. Please don't interrupt me. Or, every time I receive an email from you, it triggers me. And it's not like don't send me emails, just send it to me at the end of the week when I'm ready for them. But it interrupts my momentum as a self employed person. Don't come knocking on my door unexpectedly. It interrupts me, it triggers me. I'm in anxiety. I've got an anxiety condition. Them ignoring all of that. And now, boom, the doctor confirms this, as you see below here. It says everything. So, because all these factors that Scott had put in place before my hearing had me win this case, that I'm not evicted. And the judge ruled against the eviction because I was persistently early with the rent. I have an anxiety disorder. And it's my first time with being here in court with persistently late in rent. But all these other factors that Scott had me do, or he strategically put into place, had me, I say almost, it's a miracle I won because I was 12 months in a row late with the rent and I had not till today paid it. And the judge ruled against the eviction. And now I've saved my place thanks to Scott's genius mind, what he did to help me and making this happen for me, that he won this for me. He won for me. I was in anxiety the whole time. I couldn't even represent myself. If I had to go out and represent myself, there's a high probability I wouldn't have won. I would have lost because I wouldn't have known what's coming. And so, guys, it's now 1:21. I've done my best to share my COVID story with you. I've actually started sharing my story. I was just after 9 a.m. I started sharing. So I've been sitting here since really 8 a.m. talking about it. But yeah, let's just say since 9 a.m., I've been just in the process of sharing my story with you. And now it's 1:21. So I've done my best to share it with the best of my ability. If you've sat this long listening to me, thank you. And this is my COVID story. Maybe later on, I will be inspired to do a better version of it. So now it's Monday, August 15th, 1:22 p.m. Sorry, August 16th. It's August 16th, 1:22 p.m. I'm gonna have to take a break. And after I come and I after my I have after my break, I have like about 6 to 8 hours of video editing to do. So I'm going to do that peacefully, not when I'm suffering, because that doesn't work. Because I'm going to piece this story all together and put it all together in a way that respects your time the most, that honors you, and that's enjoyable for you to sit through and watch my COVID story. Really, I know I don't have to make up anything, but really honoring the fact that I didn't get you my previous COVID story as promised and left you hanging. If you're one of those people who I promised my COVID story to. So thank you so much for being so patient and awesome with me. I'm going to go take my break now. And then I've got 6 to 8 hours of video editing to do. And so I will get this to you maybe tomorrow, maybe Wednesday. I'm going to do my best to get this to you as soon as possible, but I just want to make sure I edit this in a way that's going to really respect your time and be enjoyable for you to watch. Thank you.